Hey everybody, this is Brian with Petty's Garage. Today we're going to be installing the manifold and coil covers for a 5.7 HEMI. We're just going to kind of go through the process and show you what the deal is. Your hardware kit that you'll receive, this is an M6x40. These will hold the coil covers to the coils. These are a finishing washer. They'll go underneath all of your hardware. And this would be the M6x20. That holds the cover of the manifold to the coil covers. And this is one of the 1/8 inch spacers. It goes between the coil cover and the manifold cover. It gives it a small air gap to just to help evacuate some of the heat. Okay, now that we've described the hardware, let's start getting down to some assembly. Anti-seize up our bolts. Just put a drop of anti-seize on them. Put our finishing washers on. No need to use a ton of anti-seize, it goes a long ways. All right, we got those put together. We're going to assemble these loosely on the table. We will, see the orientation, we have them laid out here. This is the front, so this will be the left side cover. Notice the oil fillers in the front, and then the dipstick tube is in the front of the right side cover. So just make sure you have them laid out in the right orientation. So we're going to take one of those 1/8 inch spacers, one of the M6x20 bolts, and the spacers kind of go between here. And I'll show you, here's why it's a little easier to assemble it on the table. You can kind of hold everything in position and tighten it up. This will be real loose, you know, finger tight. So it'll still move around a little bit. Tools you're going to need for this, you'll need a 4mm Allen. So sometimes it's easier just to have that, if you have a socket, to have it on the end. Just kind of have that apart. Throw your spacer under here, swing it over. Say just lightly assemble it. Because there's a little play in all of the holes. We do that just for ease of installation. Because you know, if we made all the holes dead on size, it makes it very hard to make all the holes line up. So we try to give you just a little bit of play and not be sloppy. So one last 1/8 inch shim goes underneath here. And now we're ready to go over to the car. Now we're at the car. This car, the factory engine cover has already been removed because they have an aftermarket catch can. They have our strut bar and stuff. They have several add-ons already that kind of limit the space, so they've already removed that. But if your car has the factory shroud, it's as easy. You reach here and you just pull up and it pops right off of these 4 studs here on the fuel rail. So if your car has that, taking it off is really no problem. Once that's removed, you have to take 4 of the coil bolts out. Here on the right side, I've taken a pink paint pen and kind of marked them. It's the second coil back on the right side, the top front bolt, and the last coil is the top front bolt. So you just take a 10mm socket and remove those. Okay, that's the right side. All right, moving back over here to the left, there's we have the 2 bolts in the coils, but there's also this hose right here has to be removed. It has to be removed from over here at the intake. So it depends on, you know, how old your car is, how brittle it is. You might have to twist it a little and pull, and it'll just pull off, and just kind of move it over and tuck it behind the air conditioning lines for the time being. Then you come in here, it's the top row of bolts again, this front coil, top bolt, and the 3rd coil back, the top bolt. We'll just remove those. Okay, Now that that's done, we can grab our shroud and start assembly there. Here we have our shroud. This car is a little more difficult to slide it in. It's got our strut bar, which that really doesn't pose a lot of problem, but this car also has the catch can, which makes it a little more difficult to get in place. You just have to be really careful not to try to scratch anything, but it should maneuver right down over everything into place. I mentioned the catch can. This car does not have the Petty's Garage catch can, which you can buy at pettys-garage.com, but we had to actually make a shim and move this one and do a little bit of replumbing to clear our shroud. So if you have aftermarket add-ons on your car that aren't Petty's Garage specific, you may have to do some alterations there. So just FYI. So I'll run it back over here to the table. I'll get the 4 M6 by 40s that we looked at earlier, and we'll go ahead and install those. Now we're going to position this thing and go ahead and install the bolts. It really helps to have some light. If you're in a dim garage or something, it's really difficult. But like, you can position this good enough, you can see the threaded hole in the valve cover to start these. So try to start these by hand because they're really easy to cross thread, and you definitely don't want to damage the threads in your valve cover. Okay, we'll go to the right side and install those. So I like doing all this by hand. That way you're not forcing anything into position. So we'll make sure all the threads stay nice and straight. So, all right, now that we've got all of our hardware installed loosely, just kind of take a look around, make sure all of your electrical components, your hoses, everything, make sure there's good clearance. Because the factory changes things so often, you know, there may be a car that has, you know, an electrical wire in a different spot or a hose. So just be sure to make sure that you have clearance and nothing's touching. So we'll go ahead and tighten up all of the bolts. If you have our strut bar, I recommend just putting just a touch of pressure down with your hand as you start, just to give it as much clearance as possible. You'll tighten these, you don't want to over tighten, just snug. They are stainless bolts, so you definitely don't want to over tighten. And then grab my extension and get the back too. All right, and we're tightened up. Don't forget, we unhooked this one hose right here. Good thing is you can kind of look straight in the front of your cover. Take your light, you can see where the port is. Just make sure you push that hose back on, and you're good to go.